Hi, welcome to my thoughts on Ironheart Season 1, Episode 4, Bad Magic. Another episode that I really loved. There will be spoilers for everything MCU leading up to and including the episode. The episode is rated TV 14, so will this video be? Let's dive right in. So, yeah, we are 2/3 of the way through the season, and as far as I know, entire show. It's the lowest end sort of, yeah, this is the episode where everyone is disappointed in Riri. Her mom is disappointed that she manipulated her, pretending to want the, you know, yeah, reading or some, Zay is disappointed that she made Natal AI. Natal AI is disappointed that Ree isn't really standing up for her. I'm still not sure. Has he self-identified as Zeke? I guess I'll keep calling him Joe for now. Joe is disappointed for her using the technology, and if I recall, they did actually have the conversation that he was like, I can't survive prison. It's important that none of my technology, because, yeah, it could be traced back to him, and that's exactly what happened. I guess an argument could be made that Parker, and certainly, let's see, Zelma and Madeline are disappointed in Ree for bringing, something that she should have known how dangerous it is into their place. Yeah, Parker, an argument could be made, although I suppose that was more the end of, or the post-credit, whatever, of the previous episode. I guess an argument could be made for the gang, although we don't see their reaction. I'm slightly, I guess it's mostly like 66%. I feel like they are willing to attack her. We don't see their reaction, so it's as yet undeclared. But they knew John longer, and they knew how much John meant to Parker, and they didn't question Parker that much. So, yeah. I guess that covers, yeah. So, I really appreciate the show addressing, because, yeah, she has done some things that she really shouldn't have, and we understand how she ended up there. I'm not saying it, I don't think it's bad writing, for example. I don't think it's a bad element of the show, quite the contrary. Oh, by the way, I keep forgetting to mention, if you haven't already, make sure you watch Anthony Gramulia's video, Everyone Hates Ironheart for the Wrong Reasons? Singular or plural, I forget, but great video. And, yeah, it's the thing of, Batman tries to stop muggers in dark alleys, Spider-Man, blah, 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 responsibility and power. Yeah, she badly wants to prevent anyone else from dying the way that, both Natalie and Gary did. And I forget if it's been outright stated. It might just be magical thinking, but maybe it was said, possibly off screen. If only someone could have gotten to them sooner, they could have been saved. So she wants to build this robot. And yeah, in her mind, if she doesn't do these heists and get this money so she can upgrade the suit and all, she's letting the next Natalie and Gary die. And yeah, I thought they did a really good job exploring her guilt here. There are times where she doesn't even really defend herself. She just kind of, she doesn't pretend to her mother. Once her mother realizes about the manipulation, she doesn't say, I wasn't really doing that. She just says, you always want to solve things your way. That's why I didn't tell you. And yeah, with Joe, she doesn't pretend like, she doesn't. This would have, it would have been such bad writing if she had said like, I don't know how your technology ended up at the, because no, at this point we need her ready. It would be kind of pathetic if she was like, whining about, oh, it's not really my fault. No, she's ready to admit it, and she's going to try to fix it. She's admitting that she did things she shouldn't have. She's maybe not always completely ready to fully apologize for it, but yeah, I wouldn't rule out she's going to get there by the end of the season. I think, but yeah, and they continue to tackle the PTSD. She's all this time she's done all these terrible things that she's done. The heists, and manipulation and such, because she was telling herself this is the only way to save people. This is, right now she's in this episode she's trying to protect Zay, Ronnie, and once she's done all the tests, she's like, I don't know how to fix this, and that's, she spent 5 years trying to make it better, and now she's seemingly made it worse. She's endangered people she cared about, and she has no idea what she can even do that's left, because science has always, for years science has been the way she figured can fix it, and that's also, that is something. Again, I maybe I'm overanalyzing, whatever. I think it is important that we confront the fact science is not going to solve everything. I'm a big believer in science, especially as long as you don't expect me to memorize, fully understand, much less explain it to anyone. But I'm a big believer. I am so grateful that there are people who can do those things and are doing it where I don't need to be part of it, because I would just be dead weight. But science has solved a lot of problems. There are some problems science can't solve, and that is something we have to address. And that's also something, they did do that some in the Iron Man movies. But if we're being honest, a lot of the time it did end up, and to be fair, the show's not over yet. I suppose it's possible it will end up just saying, oh, nope, don't worry, she fixed it with science. I hope not. If that is what happens, and I remember, I will point that out in the video where, there's 2 episodes left. Right now it's looking like it might not be until next week, but hopefully early next week, maybe Wednesday, that I finish watching the show and do my spoiler-free review. But, at the end of the day, Tony could usually, even, to the point of having to invent time travel, he was always able to science his way out. And I hope that this episode is genuinely going to say, no, Riri is not going to fix everything with science, let's see. I am willing to acknowledge the endings of these MCU Disney Plus shows have not always been the best. Right, so I think that does bring us to, yeah, let's do some more chronological stuff. So yeah, very, very nicely, the thing of with, they can't quite reach, Joe, and then they go there, and Heather's, she's so petty. I admire the restraint that it must have taken the writers not to name this character Karen. And I feel bad for, like, people named Karen who aren't Karens. But yeah. she is very much a Karen. Why did they arrest him? Well, for one thing, look at what he did to my flowers. See, this kind of stereotype would really bother me if there weren't such positive depictions of women on the show. If that was like the most prominent female character, it would be like, oh, come on. But, you know, yeah. Let's see. The women are not necessarily like 100% good or whatever, but they're interesting and complex. And yeah, I I prefer that. I mean, the show's not Jessica Jones, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I think they've done a pretty good job on Riri of this. Yeah, she does wrong things, and for the right reason, but still. And yeah, in recent years, the MCU has shown more of a willingness to do that. I don't know if we're ever gonna see the Eternals again, but clearly when they made that movie, they were intending to make more, and some of the Eternals are definitely, not 100% good. I suppose an argument could be made not one of them is 100% good, or a dick. But other than that, we obviously have Shang-Chi. Yeah, killed someone because his father told him to. And as a teenager, no less, so just, yeah. Anyway, yes, so, yeah, the, she finds out, yeah, it's because of the technology being traced there, so, yeah. And she goes to see him, and I really admire the way that Alden Ehrenreich is gradually introducing more sinister tones to the performance, because there was almost none when we met him. Almost none at all. But once he starts, blackmailing Riri, and now with, yeah, like I'm not blaming him for not forgiving her. I get that. And the words he says, which I also appreciate, she doesn't like really argue with, but he's seemingly he is going to join the game, although, yeah, no, I'm pretty sure the thing at the end they're not like tricking him into killing himself, because that wouldn't make any sense. They don't need him dead. They need the technology working. They need someone other than Riri. So yeah, looking forward to seeing that in action. And yeah, they're really getting good at this thing of like having a character that we're not quite sure if they're going to end up, because I don't know if she could be able to talk him down before the end of the show. I don't know. I could imagine that certainly it looks like they're gearing up for that thing that they like to do when Iron Man is involved, which is, or Iron Tech, which is having someone fight someone else in a suit, or, in the case of Ultron, it was a robot, but yeah. Um, you know, yeah. They certainly like doing that, don't they? There has not been that many, like, major appearances by Tony that didn't have at least one robot or other person in a suit, if he fought much of anyone, I guess it really is just Spider-Man 1 and Captain America 3, I think, are the... Oh, I guess maybe an argument... Certainly... No, yeah. Infinity War and Endgame, but those are... Right. Avengers 1 also. Anyway. Yeah, let's see. Yeah. And that was also, yeah, I really appreciate, she doesn't interrupt, she doesn't argue with Joe, and yeah, Joe, he says what he has to say, and then he tells the guard to take him back to the cell. Let's see. I think, does that bring us to the let's see. That is also a thing. Like, I feel like that should just be a sort of, because they keep getting his it keeps taking him straight to voice. Yeah, they keep just going to voicemail. When someone gets arrested, maybe change their outgoing number to, the number you have called is owned and operated by someone who is currently arrested. Although I suppose maybe it's so that they don't immediately get rid of evidence. So that's, yeah. Let's see. The person calling, I mean. Was not the biggest fan of. I thought they did a good job on the let's see. I guess does it qualify as a montage? Short clips certainly of him going to prison, and we see on his face like he is not going to be able to cope with this. If he hadn't been jailbroken by the end of the episode, yeah. But yeah, good several clips and seeing the different parts of being arrested. We haven't really seen that since Loki, I think. Maybe every several shows they're just going to show someone being arrested. But yeah, I was not the biggest fan of, he's sitting next to like a bigger convict, and we're obviously supposed to think, oh, that guy's going to be a threat, and everyone can tell that, he's, he isn't going to last very long, the sort of thing of like, I think I'll just direct you to, because he explains it so much better than I could. Pop culture detective, and I of course do not recall off the top of my head the name of the video, and my wrists are too bad to check right now. But he definitely made a video on. He doesn't have like a ridiculous backlog, so you can scroll through. He made one talking about like the depiction of like inmates and prison and such. And yeah, he says absolutely everything that I would be saying at this point. And in general, he makes excellent content. Every video of his is worth watching. Anyway, I think that does get us nicely into. So yeah, the funeral sort of thing was yeah, and Riri standing there, and she's like looking away. She's like, and we have, yeah. I already mentioned. I think they're doing a good job of like guilt. Both for, I already talked some about her guilt at, incriminating Joe. Also, having let Parker die. John die. I don't know why I keep missing. I'm just gonna, yeah, John. I think I'm just gonna refer to Parker as Hood, because that's somehow the only way I can keep from calling Parker John or John Parker. And I think there was a brief moment where I did think, oh, John's full name is John Parker, which I'm pretty sure it isn't. Anyway, but yeah, she, if she had saved John, there would have been, he would have told the others what she did. But she did have enough time. She could have grabbed him and flown out, and the show made that clear. She made a decision to leave him there to die. And, Natal AI just points out it was self-defense. She doesn't say, Natal AI does not say to Riri, there was nothing you could have done, there was no time. Natal AI says it was self-defense. And that is true. It was self-defense. That doesn't mean that there was nothing she could have done. And yeah, Riri standing there trying to avoid looking directly into anybody's eyes, and yeah, the Hood doesn't say the first thing, and I forget exactly who, but someone says, maybe everybody should just, we could go around, everybody says what they most miss. And Riri didn't say anything because she didn't know him any further than she could let him die. Um, I know I say it every freaking time, but I really, really like Clown. I get, a lot of people would have opened by acknowledging, so yeah, I was kind of upset with the deceased not long before they died. I'm not saying, that part is not unique to Clown. But then she says, for good cause, I had reason to be upset with him. Just, I guess she's not necessarily that much like speaking ill of the dead, but just like keeping it, being honest about the dead kind of thing, Let's see. But yeah, and then she says, now I'm kind of mad he's not here. Just, yeah. Um, and yeah, I really, it's a fairly simple thing, but I thought this episode made good use of the what's it called again? Audio blur, I think. The kind of like making voices a little harder to make out as Riri is being overpowered by, when it's an LAI, it's a panic attack. Shortly before flying it, when they're talking about, how when they're realizing they might just not be able to destroy the hood. And yeah, during the funeral, I guess there it's both Riri's guilt, the intensity of that, and also the anger felt by Hood. And I guess I'll just briefly talk about yeah, so she, there's the thing about, do you have more work for me? I'll let you know. Yeah, it's unclear if we're getting the third heist or if they are going to focus entirely on killing Riri or what exactly. I mean, there are 2 episodes left. So, anyway, yeah, and then, she shows up later and, Clown is like, oh, the Hood hired a new tech person. He didn't tell you that? And she's like, oh, yeah, I just forgot. And goes in, oh, yeah, it's too bad about Joe. I wish you had come to us instead. But, yeah, the new person will pick up the slack, just, and, yeah, both Riri and we know what happens when this gang no longer needs a tech person. So, yeah, and I thought it was very clever to make it, that happens very, very early in the episode, this thing of, making it clear, yeah, they're probably, and yeah, by the end of the episode, we realize, yeah, it seems like Joe is the new tech person. And yeah, I mean, I don't know that they will need Riri anymore. I think Joe can do basically any, and certainly, they're not expecting her to work with them after the, yeah. Let's see. I think that does pretty well cover. I also, yeah, I like when they were just talking about, some of them actually felt kind of bad that this guy is going to go down for a crime he didn't commit. And, yeah, I mean, they trust Riri enough to think that wasn't how, the incriminating, let's see, I think that might more or less bring us... Was there anything more to say about the gang and the, Perhaps not. Yeah, right, certainly, if they're like, would Riri really betray us? I don't know. That doesn't sound like her. Hood can just bring in the expert witness, Joe, and be like, well, tell them what you told me. You know, it's, yeah. Let's see. I think that might just about bring us to the, yeah, the thing with, you know, the door locks and then, you know, suddenly Hood is in there and, you know, yeah, understandable that Joe assumes hallucinations. And yeah, he lays it all out and says, you know, have an answer by lights out tonight. And you know, that was fun with, you know, Joe like goes out and he sees the lights and then he doesn't really do anything. He stands there and then one of the lights like blinks 3 times like, I don't have all lights out. Joe, with your interest in tech, I'm willing to bet you've played enough video games to understand what's happening here. Okay, this is the tutorial level. Do I have to repeat everything, or can you keep up? And I know, I cannot deliver that as well as Emma Stone can. Anyway, yeah, let's see, I think that does bring us nicely into, I think that might be everything for the gang itself. So very, yeah, you know, if she makes the watches to appropriate enough, you know, it's, yeah, like, you know, she's handing out these things like candy to both Zay and Ronnie, who, despite not actually getting them in the same scene, somehow both say, you're giving us watches to watch us. And yeah, that it activated from the gunshot from the TV because she's watching X-Files. And yeah, you know, and understand, you know, that's a clever, and that also kind of forces, you know, she wasn't really admitting exactly what it was for. She was just like, please do, you know, for me. And Ronnie's like, you know, you've been going through a lot these last 5 years. You know, I can, you know, and it's you know, it's a watch. It's not a kidney. And yeah, you know, understandably, she's like, you want me to? Why would I? Why would I wear a watch to bed? Do I look like Patrick Bateman? Please do not say yes. And yeah, you know, Zay ends up giving his back. You know, and really, yeah, I think it's probably wise of, you know, yeah, Riri to not press the issue and ask, do you still think I'm a good person? But that was also a great, you know, do you think I'm a good person? And he's like, well, that depends on who's watching. You know, with all of that, you still need the label good. But also the thing, you know, I'm not really a watch guy. Yeah, it's not really, it's not for aesthetic purposes, clearly. Yeah. Actually, I guess that does. Let's. There's not that much more to say about Zay, so I'll just briefly deal with that. Clearly, this video is not going to end up very chronological. But yeah, the thing about, you know, he hears a knock at the window and turns around, and it's the suit, you know, and Miss Riri Williams at my window, you know, just yeah, and you know, suit opens and you know, uses the hand to motion, you know, get in my suit. And I'm slightly torn on if it's like to go easy on the effects people, which I'm all for, or if it's because they thought it worked as like a cutaway gag, smash cut gag. Um, I am not entirely sure how the suit managed to get him in. I don't know. I just feel like that could have been a fun bit of slapstick because it only has two hands and he's got four limbs to resist with. But yeah, it ends up getting there, flying there, and that again, like that feels more Natalie than Natal AI. That's yeah, to fly Zay there, and yeah, at first the yeah, Natal AI doesn't reveal themselves immediately, but yeah, and he is understandably upset, and you know, yeah, after Natal AI reaches out the hand and then pulls it back, realizing, oh, right, no physical form. He's like, oh, no physical form. So, touches and realizes, more or less what happened. And yeah, points out this is not, I forget the exact words, but he conveys that this is not healthy. This is not the right, and points out this is completely different from the mixtape. That was honoring her. This is not right. And yeah, I quite appreciate the he I I am with him on this is not the right way to okay, at the very very most, if you had it for like a few minutes and you say the goodbyes to that you would have to the real person and then never again, but Zay can tell this is not what that is. Um, I think that does pretty well. So that let's see, there's more Ronnie, and there's the montage of trying to destroy the hood piece. Is there anything else? I guess that is. Let's see. Because like everything else, I feel like I've already covered. Yeah, I think I will. Right. So, yeah. Um, right. I also think that the episode shows well the paranoia. The way that she's gradually. She really has no luck with like she keeps trying to call people that might be able to help with this stuff and getting voicemail, and they're dead in prison or. Well, I guess not both. At least not yet. But the show's not over yet. Um, but yeah, she. Yeah, I do think she made a mistake. And again, that's not a criticism of the show. That is in praise of the show. She should have told Ronnie um, about the hood piece. And I thought they did a really good job because, like, most of the time Ronnie has something to say to things. It's not always what Riri wants to hear. I also like the thing about, quick, lock the door. Mom. Ronnie. If you're not paying rent, you don't get a lock. Which I have heard that stereotype. Yeah. Um, let's see. And I mean, I'm not the right. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on it. I think you know, from what I hear, you know, um, non-white parents are not inherently like worse parents than like a lot of the worst parents I've ever heard of have been white. So, and male, just to deal with both minority identities there. But yeah, let's see the right. That's another thing I got to talk about the guilt the thing about Do you have anything to come clean about? What do you mean come clean? No, I said I'm headed to the cleaners. Do you have anything that I need to wash for you? That's a because like she just heard the word clean And that's a thing the human brain sometimes does, because sometimes if we wait to positively identify every single thing that we hear, we might end up dead. If you hear a branch snap and you live in a tribe in nature, if you're like standing around thinking, well, based on the sound, I think the thing might weigh this much. No, no, no. You run, and then maybe once you're in safety, you turn around and look and see if it really was a predator or not. So, yeah, her brain is trying to figure out, am I in danger, basically. And the thing with, your dead coworker, how do you know about that? The police told me, because like she was thinking, and that is also, yeah, if the it's not necessarily subtle, but yeah, so far 2 dead coworkers in just a few days, that might suggest that you're operating under capitalism, and in this case also working for a gang. I think that pretty, but yeah, there's definitely at least a little bit of like a scared straight kind of thing going on here, which I think there's so much good going on with the show that I can overlook, because I think sometimes scared straight can work, but a lot of the times it just ends up being really preachy and obnoxious and like not actually addressing why people, and that is also the thing, this show is talking about why do good people do bad things. I think that does get us all the way to, so yeah, she tells her, maybe I do need or a bath, and Ronnie's like, listen, Riri, if you don't want to deal with me, you can just say that you don't want to talk right now. You don't have to build an AI of yourself and then program it to, make like Chat GPT and humor me, okay? But yeah, they go, and that was also, the thing of, yeah, going in there, and she's like, I said magic and you heard Willy Wonka? You're saying Willy Wonka isn't magic? And that is one thing. I do not have a huge amount of like positive things to say about Doug Walker these days. Haven't even paid attention to him much at all in years now. I do appreciate, I mean, I'm not sure if it was actually his idea or not, but yeah, apparently first, at least live action, Black Willy Wonka. So that's not nothing. And not him. Crap. Malcolm, right? I'm sorry, haven't paid attention to them in years. I really don't mean to. I acknowledge that it is disrespectful to not remember someone's name. I swear I mean no disrespect. I quite liked Malcolm. I think that the additional cast, the new cast that stayed on after demo reel, were a real boost to it. It got pretty old when it was just Doug and the occasional cameo or such. Anyway, yeah. I quite liked Zelma saying the faithful Oompa Loompa. Like, I heard that, Riri. I know I am not the only person who thinks that Zelma looks like Haryana Hook. So this is a good time for me to shout out. That's an excellent channel. I have learned so much. So make sure you check her out if you haven't already. Let's see. I think that, as far as I can tell, that isn't actually her though. I checked the cast list and the name is completely different. Yeah. Anyway, I think that might bring us to but yeah, that was also a fun bit of, like Riri's like, I can't believe, what is this, amateur hour? And then, Zelma's like, please don't be mad. Mad at you for what? Oh, that. And yeah, the thing about, but I didn't we didn't travel very far. I didn't take us very far. You're not supposed to be doing it. And she is like, berating her child, like, or offspring, as if, like, I told you, you have to clean up your room. There's too many Legos on the floor. I said that like hours ago, and you're still not sorry. But this is, yeah. If you and your offspring are magic users, then that's what you're berating. You're not supposed to take us to a parallel dimension, or construct something in there. That whole thing. Yeah. And that was also like Riri making a rookie mistake of, like, she's about to actually take out a magical artifact right there in front of, like, no, come on, just. And that was also a great, yeah. Riri comes in and Selma's like, so, the thing in your pocket, that's what you're here for, right? Because, like, come on, this is not my first rodeo. I guess actually maybe it is, but she can tell. It's yeah, and. Yeah, they do some tests, and they look at it, and that was also great. When Riri sees it, she's like, oh, the hood's here, and then the two magic users see it, and it's like, natural. Pfft. Seen that before. Wrote the book, and yeah, they do some testing and change, and also the thing of Ronnie, please put down that thing. It's impossible to get back out of your head. Where did my daughter get brain maggots? It's just these little things that, and the thing of mentioning, yeah, she learned some of the stuff from Kamartaj, which was where, she, yeah, it makes a lot of sense that and yeah, baby witches on TikTok. That's, yeah. Let's see. I think that does pretty well get us to. Holy crap! I've been recording for a while. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. The thing with the tea leaves. Oh, I can do that. Oh, I can't do that. and yeah, they note. Oh, it's evil. You took something evil in here. This is the time where you leave. And let's see. Yeah, they point out, there's no good tech or bad tech, but there is such a thing as bad magic. Yeah, I think that does pretty well cover. Right. Also, Riri putting up security cameras and then checking them, and then sleeping in the suit and all this stuff. The Kool-Aid Man thing. I don't think her Kool-Aid impression sucks though. And I doubt her home movies are boring. Is that video even up anymore? I don't think it was last I checked. Anyway, hopefully there's somebody else out there who's actually watched that before they, yeah. Anyway, I think that does bring us to, yeah, let's see. Right, I did think it is a very authentic conflict, this thing of, yeah, she doesn't tell her mom about this stuff because her mom wants to solve things a certain way. And she does, I will say, she does come across as sometimes intense and such, which, you can understand, all that, she lost Gary and well, let's see. I guess. See, I'm slightly unclear on because were they all living together, or was Natalie just Riri's friend? I don't know, but she definitely lost Gary. And she points out, I know you don't think you can come to me. You always went to Gary, but you can talk to me about this stuff. Let's see, and I think that does bring us to the, yeah, he has a live, laugh, leave. Wow, yeah, and he has a that's how bad he is at that, how ill-suited he is for this whole thing. He actually has a spare key for his secret lab. Just, yeah. But yeah, she gets in there, even orders Uber Eats or something. Now I feel dirty for mentioning. I think Uber Eats is one of those companies that need to pay their workers better. So just, I'm not trying to promote them or something. Anyway, let's see. I think, but yeah, that guy also, that the delivery person, wasn't the, yeah, what's the word? Biggest, yeah. They were like, why is that, but I mean, the app gave the address, so, let's see, I think, I, is that everything, or, yeah, I like the montage of trying to destroy it in every single possible way. And yeah, she's being very scientific with it. Like several of the earliest ones are things you would figure. It's fabric, so freezing it. I actually, yeah, freezing it. There's a pretty decent chance freezing it and then hitting it with something heavy. You know, I'm not enough science inclined to know, but I think a substantial chunk of, materials in the known universe would indeed be destroyed by that, and acid also makes sense. It turns out, the acid burnt through the container instead of the, yeah. Let's see. And also, yeah, the first time, when she starts looking at it, she's looking at it through a microscope. And she notes that, what was it, like, there's energy being, so it's like powering Hood. And then they try to figure out how the energy could, how is it being generated, sort of thing, and, end up on magic. And that is also something, yeah, seeing magic and technology meld. There's some really cool stuff in the comics that uses that, and we haven't really seen it, I don't think, in the MCU before now. So, yeah, really cool to see. And I am one of the people who do not think that the real Mandarin should have been in Iron Man 3. Though I will say I thought he would, based on the trailers, but yeah. I think it's a good time to bring in. Also because at that time, magic at large hadn't been introduced. But now, they even name drop Doctor Strange. I think that does... Yeah. I like Natalie I just going off about the Arctic and penguins, and that's a fun fact. Well, it's not a fun fact, but it is a fact. And she's talking about, the is the yeah, what's the word? How the, yeah, even though she is aware, Natalie AI is aware that, yeah, penguins and Arctic don't actually go together. For some reason, that is, yeah, it's silly because, like, I feel like we've all heard it by now. I think the first time I heard that penguins and Arctic don't actually go together. Oh, was that maybe? Yeah, I think I read that in there's a. I think they were hoping that people wouldn't write in, which probably still some people did. Especially because that was before they could comment on Seth Meyers' videos and be a jackal, corrections jackal. Which is perfectly good, honorable work. Nando v Movies is a self-admitted one. But the manual for Commandos 2 has a page that just notes that they made some decisions to change certain things because they thought that it made the game more engaging. But they write, yes, we know, technically this is not the right place to have penguins. There aren't penguins in that exact part, but yeah. So I don't know. I guess 20 years ago by now is the first time I heard that penguins and Arctic don't actually go together. We've all heard it, and yet it's still one of those things that we just think, it's stuck in our heads that way. When I think for a lot of us, when we hear penguins, the first thing that pops into our heads is Arctic. That, or why can't Benedict Cumberbatch say that word?